Tell us a little bit about your background, your education, how you got into singing, how your career developed.
It's very interesting. I actually was born over there where you are. I was
Oh,
born in Dunedin.
oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
And when I was about 6 months old, my parents bought a lodge and restaurant in northeast Pennsylvania, right outside of Scranton, a little town called Beach Lake, which is near Honesdale. I don't know if anyone is from up in that area, but of course, I don't remember any of that, but we moved up there. My mother was a concert pianist,
Hmm.
and she gave up her career basically because she wanted to have a family. She had 6 children, and then she thought she was done. And then I showed up. I was the seventh one.
Lucky number
Surprise.
7.
And anyway, uh, the story goes that my parents were remodeling this lodge and restaurant, and there was this old piano that was in one of the rooms. And apparently, I was just fascinated by it, probably because when I was in the womb, I was hearing my mother practice all the time because she would practice 4 or 5 hours a day. Um, but anyway, apparently, at the age of 3, took the piano apart and put it back together again, which is a little bit odd.
Oh my
But
goodness.
of course, I don't remember any of that. But what I do remember is my first public performance. I was 4 years old, and I won the first place talent award in the state fair because I played the Flight of the Bumblebee on the piano. I don't know how, but I guess I did. And that started my romance with music. And then over the years, eventually, at first my mom, gave me lessons, but then it got to a point where she decided I needed a different teacher than her, and so I started at a local music school, learning piano and learning the rudiments of music and the basics of music theory. Then what happened was my parents, they decided to sell this lodge and restaurant, and we moved to upstate New York, a little town called Clinton, which is outside of Syracuse. And I began to really seriously get involved with my piano and with composing. So the thing is that I grew up Roman Catholic, and I sang as a boy soprano in the choir at church. And I decided at the age of 11 that I wanted to write a Latin mass, and I wanted it to be my confirmation project.
Oh my goodness.
Other kids were like feeding homeless people or whatever. I decided I wanted to write a Latin mass.
Wow.
So, and I was so lucky because in this town of Clinton, this is where Hamilton College is. Hamilton College is one of the really great universities in the state of New York, and they have a fabulous music program. And so I had the benefit of having some outstanding teachers. Anyway, okay, 11 years old, I wrote a Latin mass for 5 soloists, full choir, and orchestra. I wrote it in a week and a half while I had strep throat. And I submitted it as my confirmation project. I felt like it would be a blessing if we would be able to perform it at the church. Well, my music teacher looked at it and was, he was overwhelmed. And so he actually submitted it to the New York State Council on the Arts because they were doing a competition for young people, young talented musicians. And about 6 months later, I received a letter in the mail from Kitty Carlisle. I don't know if you remember her. She was a great performer. She was the head of the Council on the Arts, and they awarded me first place in the New York State Council on the Arts. So I went to New York City with my dad and my mom, accepted the award, and the head of the composition department at the Juilliard School had been one of the judges. And that night when I accepted my award, he asked me, he said, is there any way that you would be able to come and study composition with me? I want to go through your work. I want to show you places where you could have made some better choices and really try to, figure this out. And so my parents decided once a month we would do that. They didn't charge me a dime. I can't believe it. We didn't have a lot of money, and my parents had a lot of kids. So, but so that was how I got involved with composing, and I started studying at the Juilliard School with Abraham Kaplan. And then my voice changed. I was still in high school. My voice changed, and I somehow got involved with the local opera company. We had a wonderful opera company, the Mohawk Valley Opera in Utica, New York. And one of my teachers had said to the director, you've got to hear this kid's voice because he's a beautiful singer. At the time, I really thought of myself more as a pianist and composer than a singer. Singing was just something I kind of did for fun. And, but I went and auditioned and all of that. They accepted me into the opera company. And I think I was 14 or 15 years old. And they had some performances scheduled of some small cabaret style operas. And I don't know, the director of the company asked me if I would be a rehearsal accompanist. So I said yes. So I got involved playing and then singing. And then when I was 16, I actually debuted as the Count Almaviva in the Barber of Seville and their main stage production, right? I mean, I couldn't believe it. And it was great. I mean, we had such great singers up there. And then I graduated from high school and I decided I wanted to go to college, and I wanted to go to the Juilliard School. And I had been talking with Maestro Kaplan about, attending the Juilliard School. And so I did my auditions. I did auditions at Curtis and Manhattan School of Music and the Juilliard School. So the Juilliard School, interestingly enough, they accepted me in voice, but they didn't give me much of a scholarship. The Manhattan School of Music accepted me on piano, but not in voice, and they gave me a full ride. Curtis accepted me, and Phyllis Curtin was teaching there at the time. She was a great soprano, but I wanted to study with a tenor. So anyway, I didn't know what to do, and I talked with my parents about it, and my folks said, listen, if you're going to go to New York City and there's no dorms, we can't afford to pay apartment. Juilliard's obviously out because that's just way too much tuition. In those days, there was no dorms for either Juilliard or Manhattan School of Music. So it was just, do what you can do. So, I decided to accept my full scholarship at Manhattan School of Music to study piano. And I got in my car one day with boxes and drove to New York City with nothing other than a place to stay for a week from friends. And I immediately got a job in a Methodist church directing the choir, and basically put myself through school. So I started at Manhattan School of Music, and then what happened was, because I needed money desperately, money is a great motivator when you're a performer, isn't it? You do all kinds of stuff just to, pay the rent.
Yeah.
So I started accompanying for some voice teachers around Manhattan. So I was going to school full time. I had this full-time job in this Methodist church. And then I was, in any spare time that I had, just gigging out my piano skills as an accompanist. I knew the whole repertoire because I had played for the opera in upstate New York. And I came in touch with a wonderful soprano from coloratura soprano from the Metropolitan Opera. Her name was Rita Shane. She hired me as her accompanist for her lessons, and we traded out part of what she was going to pay me for voice lessons. And she was teaching at the Juilliard School at the time and singing at the Met. She convinced me to move over to the Juilliard School and study voice. She was able to organize a scholarship for me. And so I ended up singing. The thing is with me is I could never decide if I wanted to be a singer, if I wanted to be a pianist, if I wanted to be a composer. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I just sort of let God direct my path with whatever opportunity came up.
Yeah.
And then what happened is I auditioned for a vocal competition in New York, very prestigious, the Licia Albanese Puccini Foundation competition, a huge international opera competition. I think I was 19 or 20 years old. And Licia Albanese, who was a great, legendary soprano, she was head of that foundation. She really took a liking to me and took me under her arm. She was teaching me singing, but also music, and we were great friends. And then my time in New York City sort of came to an end. I graduated and I needed to work. So I accepted a position as a resident artist with the Tri-Cities Opera in Binghamton, New York, and went and sang there. And while I was there, I think I performed there for almost one season, maybe 8 months. And it was wonderful.